So from the Independent Women's Forum, which is something of a conservative site, it's a site for conservative feminists, we have a February 13th, 2015 article. For the love of all that's good, don't see 50 Shades of Grey. And the writer, Hadley Health? Good grief. Goes on to say, the erotic romance novel 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James quickly became a worldwide phenomenon, selling tens of millions of books within months. The story of a young college grad's sadistic affair with a billionaire CEO obviously appealed to a broad audience, and who can be surprised? Sex sells. This is true. Now that the novel is debuting as a movie, I beseech you, do not go see it. Decent people have no business consuming or celebrating this degrading storyline. Decent people. I think she means Christians. Because decent people have no business consuming or celebrating this degrading storyline. Are they really celebrating it? We go to the movies for entertainment. We read fantasy, we read fiction for entertainment, not to celebrate it. The movie theater is not a church. We're not going there to celebrate what's on the screen. We're going there to be entertained. And she continues, although we don't realize it, consuming sexually violent images affects the way we see others, our relationships, and ourselves. Yeah. Doesn't cite anything. We don't realize it. Complete Sarkeesian theory. Because the more you don't think it affects you, the more it really does. And although we don't realize it, it's happening. It's affecting us with the way we see ourselves, our relationships, and others. It's a fantasy movie. It's a work of fiction. It's entertainment, and we don't realize is that it's actually affecting us so negatively. Okay. I guess we can't distinguish between fantasy and reality anymore. That's what it comes down to. She goes on to say, society recognizes the need to censor words and images that children see and hear. Why? Now, I would say it's because they're not mentally and emotionally developed, and they're not necessarily equipped to handle these words and these images. But she says it's because we know that when garbage goes in, garbage comes out, which is true. Children often parrot what they hear. Children repeat curse words, have bad dreams. What are having bad dreams? They have bad dreams because of garbage. Okay, yeah, I suppose there are certain, like I said, children are not mentally and emotionally developed, so they don't have the same ability to assess the credibility of the media they're consuming. This is why they need to be protected from it. And continuing on here, and emulate the worst behaviors they see in movies and video games. Really? They're emulating it. That's why when children go to school and point their fingers at another child and says "bam," they get suspended. Okay, that's great. Nothing, no sources to back up these claims. We just know it happens, obviously. Continuing on, as adults, we have more self-control and trust ourselves to consume various media without being affected. Exactly. That is precisely why we need to protect children, not adults, children, from this potentially damaging media. But she goes on to say, perhaps we trust ourselves too much. Yeah, heaven forbid self-confidence. I mean, that is... Because after all, the human mind is a tricky thing. We may think we are unaffected by sexual images we see, but we are not. Again, total Sarkeesian method right there. The less you think it affects you, the more you are affected. Exactly. She goes on to say, scientists have found viewing sexually explicit images, like those in pornography, drive up dopamine levels. Okay, let me clarify something here. 50 Shades of Grey is not pornography, okay? So stop comparing it to pornography. Anyway, dopamine is the same drug that makes us feel addicted to sweets and fatty foods. It's part of our evolved reward system wherein our bodies are wired to seek out more of the stuff that makes us feel good, which is natural. Yes, it is a naturally occurring drug. I mean, if you want to call it a drug. Of course, there is nothing wrong with feeling good, although I think Christians would beg to differ. But dopamine highs brought about by pornography or sex scenes in movies aren't really real. No shit. When a person smokes to induce a high, are they really looking for realism? Are they expecting, is that what their expectations are? Are they expecting a realistic experience, or are they doing it just to get high, to escape from reality? Of course you don't want it to be real. That is the point of getting high. Okay. In fact, they can take away from our ability to enjoy our real sex lives. Yes, I think anything that's overindulged in is problematic. Moderation is important, but it can also enhance your sex life. It could give you ideas, especially if you watch more couple-themed stuff. Going on, too much exposure to pornography can cause desensitization, making it more difficult to become aroused absent that stimulation. Too much of anything generally is bad. Okay, continuing on. Then again, 50 Shades of Grey is only one movie. So can it really be harmful? Research, uncited research, would caution the answer is yes, it can be harmful, perhaps because the story mixes sex, a powerful ingredient into a twisted relationship, and may mislead viewers to think of this relationship as healthy or even desirable. It's fiction, okay? The right wing can be just as extreme as the progressive left wing. And this is proof of it. I think she and Sarkeesian see eye to eye on this. Unbelievable. Basically, this is saying we should not mix powerful ingredients into questionable tales. No powerful ingredients. Let's just have bland, mediocre fantasies. Movies about just the worst. And then she goes on. In fact, a study from Michigan State University published in the Journal of Women's Health found a link, coincidentally not a link on this page, to said study. I found a link between women who'd read 50 Shades of Grey book series and other unhealthy behaviors such as binge drinking, eating disorders, and coupling with men who verbally abuse them. Of course, because that's precisely the reason that they started engaging in these unhealthy behaviors, because they read the book. Not because this book appeals to not necessarily an unhealthy behavior demographic, but people who are more likely to engage in such unhealthy behaviors. You're not going to find a Puritan reading it. And she goes on to say, admit that correlation does not mean causation, but we should think about why this correlation exists. Moving on. The center of the relationship between Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey is sex, and not just normal sex. Okay. A lot of people have a relationship that is primarily based on sex. Some have it based on friendship. Why does it really matter? Why does it matter what your relationship is based on? I have relationships that are based around games. So if their relationship is based around sex, is that bad? Why is that wrong? We all have relationships with other people based on things. We have relationships based on work, based on the sports we play, the movies we watch. It could be any number of things, which is why I don't think this is particularly harmful to have it based on sex. Moving on, the Motion Picture Association of America called it unusual behavior. By this, they mean sadism, masochism, basically torture in pursuit of sexual gratification. I did not see the movie, but it is not pornography. And be truthful, a lot of movies have questionable violence in them. Continuing on, obviously adult people are free to do as they please. Thank you very much. Far be it from me to be your nanny or tell you what your sex life should look like, but that's exactly what you are doing. You're saying your sex life should not include these elements. But even BDSM experts, what experts? Again, uncited, say the book is closer to domestic partner violence than the edgy bedroom fantasies that are meant to be executed with consent and clear boundaries. Okay, the expert said it, so it must be true. It was even enough to make the actors uncomfortable. Janie Dornan, whatever the hell his name is, who played Christian Grey, told Glamour magazine, there were times when Dakota was not wearing much and I had to do stuff to her that I would never have chose to do to a woman. And Dakota Johnson described the filming scenes this way. It was emotionally taxing. At first I was like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. And then I was like, alright, let's get on with it. How sad. No, really, that's what she says. Okay, maybe these people are not fit for the parts. So what? I really don't see a problem here. Actors are actors because they are able to embody the emotion of the part. They're able to put themselves into an alternative character. If you can't embody that character, you are unfit for the part. 50 Shades of Grey teaches that sex is a power play between sexes. It actually doesn't teach anything. It's just a fantasy. Meant not to express love, but used to control someone else. It also depicts sex as in an extreme caricature, an emotionally distant and sex-obsessed man, and weak women who is unable to change him. It's a recycled version of the age-old plotline. Good girl falls for bad boy. Yes, there are numerous stereotypes there, I suppose. I think I'll fall back on the old. It isn't real. It is not meant to embody anything real. It is fan fiction, fantasy, erotica, okay? For women. That's all it is. The movie threatens to normalize or reinforce behaviors that are not healthy. Are we really going to start banning movies that are not considered healthy? That is quite an extreme measure to take. As Amy Bonamy, chair of the Department of Human Development and Family Studies at Michigan State University, and lead author of the aforementioned study said, which we didn't actually link to in this article, the relational dynamic in 50 Shades of Grey is consistent with abuse. Yes, I think we could agree that BDSM in general is consensual abuse, but it's not to the extreme where it would actually harm the individual, especially in 50 Shades of Grey. Anastasia Steele, quote-unquote, begins to manage her behavior to keep peace in the relationship, which is something we see in abused women. Bonamy says, as quoted in the New York Daily News, over time, Steele loses her identity and becomes disempowered and entrapped. This is not a relationship structure that society should glamorize or celebrate. Again, it is a movie. We're not celebrating it. You could look at any of the shows that are on television, the movies that are in theaters, you'll see the most glamorized forms of violence. It is entertainment. Okay, moving on, even as adults, we should recognize the impact that stories, images, and movies can have on the way we think and feel, and we should reject 50 Shades narrative as unhealthy and potentially harmful. It is potentially harmful, but that is not enough, should not be enough to discourage you from watching it, in my humble opinion. You may call me a prude. You are a prude. Fine, okay? But I am a happy prude who finds deep satisfaction in sticking my head in a hole in the real world, and no need to retreat to fantasies or unhealthy behaviors to find high. Good for you. That's perfectly fine. If you don't need it, that's okay. If you don't need that high, I'm good with that. You know, you are your own person. You can do what you think is best for yourself. I would say the less dependent you are on drugs or substances, the stronger of a person you are. And she concludes by saying, I know that I'm better off for not reading 50 Shades of Grey books or seeing the movies, and I invite you to join me. She doesn't know this because she hasn't read them. How could you possibly know that you are better off for it? You're just listening to what other people told you about the book and the movie, and you're saying, you know what? I don't think I really need to read that to become a better person, which you probably don't, but you can't say you know for a fact that you are better off. Thank you for listening, and until next time, farewell.